So Doshi, would you like to comment on how is the hydrocarbon sector going to be taken care, how coal will share into this, and most importantly, your view on the current policy environment in India, which will suit this?
Yes, I'll make some comments on coal, although I'm not a coal expert. I come from the oil and gas side, the cleaner side of the fossil fuel family. Let me just put a few facts forward. With the title called Hydrocarbons and Beyond, seeing what's beyond a very difficult issue, we need to know where we are at first, which is quite useful to see where we are at. If you look at the EIA, or for that matter, a number of agencies like BP or the IEA, and a number of agencies that set up energy models and forecasts, roughly about 27% of global energy consumption was natural gas. Oil was 37%, and coal was 18%. So fossil fuels as a whole in the year 2012 accounted for 82% of total energy. Now, renewables, in which a lot of focus has been set in many countries, in particular the newer renewables such as wind and solar, together with hydroelectricity, just accounts for 8%. Nuclear, another 8%. So just getting that in context is extremely important to realize the first point, which is that fossil fuels are here to stay for a long time. We've heard from a number of commentators previously, as well as this panel here. We've got a lot of natural resources, fossil fuels, including coal, oil, and natural gas. Now, if we look out to 2040, some of these major forecasts, it really doesn't change that much. Total fossil fuels go down from 82% to just 80%. Coal goes from, it remains the same actually, it's 18% currently, and we still expect coal to account for 18% in the year 2040. Oil to go down a little bit from 37 to 32%, and renewables increases just a little bit from 10% to, from 8% to 10%. Now, these are not hard numbers. They might change a little bit here and there, but frankly, since energy transitions take a very long time to emerge, these numbers are not going to change very much. So, what's beyond fossil fuels? Well, natural gas is among the fossil fuels looked upon as the bridging fuel, the least dirty relative to coal and oil, and how important natural gas would be to look to the future. And it's really interesting because it is precisely natural gas that we've come across one of the most fundamental revolutions in the energy markets in the last 40, 50 years, which is the US shale gas revolution, and our recent realization that shale gas is distributed all around the world, not just the US. The US created the revolution partly because they've already got infrastructure in place, and they allowed innovation to take place. So innovation, which has been emphasized by so many panels over the last 2 days, is a critical issue. Now, if you ask a typical economist, I guess I include myself in that, what is the most important issue? It is not what is below ground, the amount of actual physical reserves. It is above ground issues. What do government policies do to allow the very kind of innovations that take place that led to the US shale gas revolution, for example? Here in India, I mean, I'm not an India expert. I've been, since my grandparents' days, I'm away from India, so I look at India from the outside. I think policy issues are far more critical than actual reserves that you got under the ground. Those actual reserves remain, and I think I'll go even further. Reserves in the ground are not fixed. They're a function of human ingenuity. That is what human history has told us right throughout. If you look at reserves, over the past 100 years, they've increased, not reduced. The more we look and the more technical progress we make, the more resources we find. The problem almost always is, are governments promoting resource exploitation, or are they slowing it with policies that are meant good intentionally, but unintentionally come up with adverse consequences? So let me just, since we've got limited time, I'll just raise 3 or 4 issues, common themes that have come up in the last 3 days of discussions here. I already made the first point that it is not so much below ground issues of just what reserves we've got, but above ground issues. Issues ranging from fiscal terms, government policy, land acquisition, manpower, skills development, and so on and so forth. Some of the panels did discuss that over the last 2 days. The issue of infrastructure development was raised. And on infrastructure development, the chicken and egg, do you do the infrastructure first before you expect markets to develop, or you wait for markets to develop before you... And that chicken and egg thing is irresolvable. I think there are a couple of things you can do. One is that it should have common carrier rules so that if governments support investments in that area, that the pricing of their infrastructure has got to be competitive. They cannot use monopoly power. So it has to be regulated prices that allow enough returns in order to maintain the infrastructure and develop the infrastructure. But certainly, I mean, I worked in the Middle East for a long time. I was based in Dubai for several years. And the amazing thing that leaps out at you was that Dubai was just a pearl farming area until the ruler said, I see a port here, before the markets were there, before the ships came. He built a port, and Dubai became a major port in the world. So you can do good infrastructure development without waiting for markets to develop. The importance of innovation is undeniable. That has been emphasized throughout the last 3 days. And I guess the critical question in innovation is, do governments come in the way, or do they support innovation? I think that's the critical question. Every human being, there's a random amount of distribution of innovative and genius in the human mind. And the question really is not so much the distribution, because it's everywhere. The question is, do policies exist to allow that human innovation to take place? A couple of other points, and I'll stop there. One of the issues that came up, I think, with a couple of speakers was the ability to invest overseas to get access to natural resources. And a classic case was China's experience in Africa. I would be somewhat hesitant on this. I think if you're better at making oil, then by all means go and look for that oil and make that oil. But it may well be as good a plan to export software and with foreign currency buy that oil. If you can buy oil quite easily and pay for that oil by more productive utilization of Indian resources, then you should buy. The China model is not automatically the better one. They've had major, and as these things go, some are failures and some are successes. And you want to minimize your failures and increase your successes. Finally, let me end here. We've been told about transitions to beyond petroleum, beyond the fossil fuels. And it's important to emphasize the long-term nature of energy transitions. So as the developing countries look at renewable energy and promote renewable energy in a very serious way, including India is doing that, a lot of emphasis on solar and wind, we do need to look at some of the examples of renewable energy that has been policy that's been implemented in OECD countries. A classic one being Spain. I think in a particular year, 2006 or 7, they accounted for half of all solar installations in the world. And that was seen as a measure of success, but actually when it turned out, when you looked at the data, it was a measure of their failure because of the massive amount of government resources that went to supporting people saying, look, I can't lose. If I build a solar power plant, I'm guaranteed to make money. We definitely don't want that. And Indian policy, I think, is on the right tracks that way. Thank you.